Hi. Hello.
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 Hello and welcome to Architecting.
What's the sort of like curve for you of thinking about preparing for this? Like, do you get really excited right before, like when you're standing up on the mic, and then sort of die off, or
No, I mean, I put a lot of thought into how the thing is assembled,
right?
but I feel much better once the projects start rolling.
Yeah, right.
And I can just make stuff up.
Yeah.
And the introduction is something I work a little bit harder. I need because I want to say more than just here's a project, here's a project, here's a project.
Yeah. And you have so many projects, right? To think about what you're showing and how they're coming together and how many you're doing, and so it was interesting.
Did you like this diagram?
I did, yeah. Look, I redrew it. Yeah.
I do too.
But you're talking about sort of in typical architect fashion of they told me I had to have a title 6 months ago, and I made something up, and now I want to make something new.
Now I got to deliver.
And the new title of the lecture was what, small ideas?
Right.
Yeah. And so talk to me about, did that name come first, or did what was the kind of generation
what's
of that?
What's actually interesting is I've thought a lot about the trajectory of architecture. About years ago I gave a lecture, and Monica Ponce de Leon asked me a question: where do you position your work in the architecture culture today?
Yeah.
Hard to answer.
The canon.
And so how do you position this? And what was interesting to me about that question is that you have to know the entire conversation,
right,
to know where to position your thoughts. And so I've always sort of thought about architecture and your understanding of your voice as understanding what conversations you're having.
Right. And with who and how. And
exactly.
And so I'm very interested in that as well, of a sort of overall architectural project, right, of the thing. And so at what point in your career did she say that to you, and did it start to really be a thing that...
Oh, this was at a lecture.
Oh, okay.
When Monica was at University of Michigan. And so I don't know when that was.
Right.
We could look that up.
But you were like mid-career. It wasn't like you were in school or something.
No.
Yeah.
No, but to me it's really interesting, and I think it's really important for people to look at the spectrum of work being produced across the world globally. And frankly, back in the day, like way back in the day, people didn't know, or you would wait for the publications to come out. Now it's almost instantaneous.
Right.
If Shigeru Ban has a new building out, you see it.
Right.
In 10 minutes. So.
And then 10 minutes another building comes out, and you don't see that anymore. Yeah.
Exactly. So to me, it's really interesting to have this language of what's happening in the world, and to understand, not to understand how you fit into it, but to understand your voice as compared to this. Like, what doesn't this do that you're seeing?
Right. And are you able to succinctly articulate where you fit within that? And
still not today.
I know.
But I'm fascinated with the conversation.
Right.
And I think we're part of it. I think we're probably in the quieter. I was talking to a friend a month ago, and I said, I'm really more interested in refinement than innovation. Now, there are many, many architects that are more interested in innovation, and there are many, many architects that are more interested in the big idea than they are in refining,
right,
or the small idea.
Right.
So I know that much.
And do you feel like has that been an evolution for you? When you were younger, you were a big idea? No, you were always...
No, I think you always have this sort of conceptual basis of the design, but that isn't necessarily a big idea.
Right.
I mean, if you think of the many people that do architecture as landscape form, they choose a landscape form and then they build architecture around it.
Right.
Well, that's big. Landscapes are big. It's a big idea.
Right.
So I'm interested in that work, but I'm not interested in doing that work.
So the idea of small ideas as a title, it's touching on that. It's touching on this sort of refinement, and where I love the tongue in cheek of it, right? But it's you're talking about it sort of physically.
Exactly.
Sort of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's sort of a physical, like it can be a detail.
Right.
Or it can be like, oh, we have to refine this entire area. Somebody's changed their mind about this, or somebody has got new information on costs, and we have to change the direction or we have to use another material here, or, all of that information that we get as you move through the design process can easily, reduce the impact of the design, but that's not the point. You got to make it impactful.
Right.
You need to make it.
Yerk. Yeah. And I'm thinking about like the urban stadium, right? Where it can be seen as the opposite of a small idea, right? It's a very big idea, very big moment within the city, very big statements. But as you're talking about sort of that like refinement, right? It's about refining that area, and it's about refining the overall diagram of the city, I guess, of how it's connecting with the St. Louis Arch. And so maybe talk about that. You opened up talking about that of like this was this massive team, right? Massive design team. Then you had like 20,000 workers on the site.
Yes.
So how do you deal with that? How do you approach that project or deal with that versus a single family home or something smaller?
Well, I think it takes a lot of agility, but it also takes a compelling idea, and so you have to be able to inspire people to want to do it that way,
Right.
and to want to have this the way that it is in your head.
Right.
And so I think we had meetings at the very beginning every week, and we had our people embedded with HOK. And so, and now it's wonderful because we have people representing the project outside of Snow Kreilich in exactly the way that we thought of it.
Yeah.
And it's kind of not we necessarily just as Snow Kreilich, but as a team.
Yeah.
And so it was lovely.
Nice. All right. We had to pause for mic difficulties, but jumping back in, I want to go back a little bit. So, kind of where did you grow up, and how did you get into architecture? What's that story? You have 3 hours. I said, yeah.
I grew up in, this is easy.
Okay.
I know where I grew up. Yes. I grew up in Western Michigan.
Oh, okay.
And my dad was good friends with John Dinkeloo, Roche Dinkeloo.
Yeah.
And so he was very interested in architecture. And
they just ran it. They ran into each other's house, or they went to. They went to school.
They went to school together at Oak College.
Jewishly.
And then Dad went into medicine at University of Michigan, and John went into architecture.
John kept saying, "Why didn't I go into medicine?"
He didn't talk about have any regrets.
So that's good. Yeah.
So then the first year, apparently my mom and dad had dinner with Tess and John, and Mom just said, "Julie, you've got to go into architecture. You'll just travel all over the world." And I went, "Oh, that's cool. I'll do that."
Everyone's just like John.
This was
just as
very
easy as John.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Easy peasy.
Easy. Yeah.
You'll be John Dinkeley. So I bought it. Just went to school and then worked for a summer at their office and lived with the Dinkeloo family.
Where was that?
Really cool. It was New Haven.
Yeah, New Haven. Yeah,
It was great.
Yeah.
It was great. John was a very stern Dutchman,
Oh, really?
as my dad was.
Yeah.
And but big heart,
Yeah.
And
what an
Tess was
office to be
wonderful.
in, like to get your first experience and
Yeah.
and to be in that city around all that stuff. Yeah.
It was great.
Were the con buildings completed by then? Like the British Museum or the Art Museum? Yeah. So that was all there. It was all there. The architecture schools, the Rudolph Architecture Building was there.
The Rudolph Building.
So yeah, you had.
Which I had an opportunity then to revisit teaching there.
Oh yeah,
which was
nice.
so cool.
Yeah, when were you teaching there?
I don't remember.
Pretty recent. I was
Pretty
there.
recently.
I was there from 13 to 15, but yeah.
I think I was.
I think you were at that. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure because
With that.
it was Deborah and Rosanna and Lyndon Fneering who were teaching.
Oh wow, nice.
And Millie Todd were teaching, and so it was.
It's so fun.
It was so great, and it was so collegial. It was lonely.
Yeah.
It was just a good time.
That's nice. So you got that experience, and you, from an early age, knew you were assigned to be an architect.
Yes.
And
Well, it just got to be so. It seemed like architecture was this vehicle that encapsulated basically the whole world. That it was like you had to know a ton of things
right.
to do it, or you had to be able to assemble a ton of things to do it. So, again, I didn't know much about soccer. Almost nothing, one could say. And to learn about it was just fascinating.
Yeah.
It was so exciting. And then to go to the games was just like, wow, here are 22,000 people enjoying this place.
Yeah. To go to the games in that space
Having a good time.
where you're thinking about it.
See, I don't think you get that in a museum project. So, you know how everybody wants to do a museum? Which, of course, it would be lovely. I love art. It would be great. But you never get 22,000 people having the same experience in an art museum.
Right. Yeah. I just talked with Thomas Pfeiffer last week.
Did you?
And
he's great.
he's great, right?
Isn't he
Yeah.
such a gentleman?
So humble and just he came to our architecture my studio and spoke with all the students. We made a podcast out of it, and then he did a lecture later. But he did an hour-and-a-half lecture just on the Warsaw Museum.
Yes.
And that he was saying the whole city came together, and it was he said like 20,000 people, and but it was a real yeah. Some museums, yeah, but yeah, it has to be. And it's just the difference between, a single-family home where you're affecting a few people's lives very profoundly.
That, of course, is incredibly wonderful experiences
Right.
where you really are transforming the daily existence of somebody's life. We've had projects that have been really moving, and that, the opportunity, the idea of the house is to really change everything about our lives.
Right. And speaking of small details, right? The detail in the ways that it interacts with the landscape or views, or I remember seeing your last lecture when you were here, and thinking about some of those homes where it's just these really snowy landscapes or whatever, and this thing's just blending in or whatever. But
Yeah.
So you're building up your whole life to be an architect. What you go to school for it? Where did you go to school?
Colorado.
Oh, of course, yeah, it's you. So how did that happen?
Well, I was at another school, and it was clear that they weren't super excited about having women in the program. And so I was really interested in a new experience. And so some people had come through who were doing lectures, and I contacted them, and they'd done a lecture with Dick Whitaker back in the day, and he was head of the program here. And they said, he's a really cool guy, you should talk to him. So I talked to him, and it was just, I really liked the way he thought and the way he was inquisitive about architecture, and it was great. So I had a great experience.
And I know it seems like talking to other people, do you know Harvey Hine, who's here? He's an architect here. He went to see you probably about the same time with you.
Yeah. I met him 15 minutes ago.
Yeah. He was another person. Oh, hey, yes, I know you. But he spoke about his time there, and it seemed like it's a real transition between coming in and almost trying to get people not to be architects, where it was sort of like a reaction to the 60s sort of thing, where it was more about larger issues or things, and really pushing down the kind of idea of the architectural tradition or lineage, maybe.
Right.
Was that your experience at all? Or
I think when I was there, I felt like there was a very bounded idea of the profession, that you went into an office, you drew buildings, people would come to you, they would offer you a commission, you would design it, and then you would
put it in magazines.
Wish them back and go your way. So in a sense, it was almost professional training. And I don't think the request was to think deeply enough about the projects. So for me, that's why I love Dick, so that he was the guy that really pushed that this is more than just a
nuts and bolts and
figuring this out. And there were many people in the program that were basically had jobs waiting for them,
and just
with their dads or whatever.
Phoned it in, and
and I don't think they were phoning it in, but I think they really thought that this is a trade school, and I felt differently.
Yeah. And so then what did you do when you graduated? Were you able to kind of understand the work?
Working summers for people, and I pretty much was sent, my dad paid all the bills going through school, and I went home to Grand Rapids, Michigan, and he was done paying for my bills. So
after you got the cap and you put it on the other side, and he said, there you go, there's the world.
Yeah. And so I stayed and worked for an architect until I had enough money to travel. And then I traveled and then came back and chose various places to work.
And did you continue to have that sense of, I want to think deeply about architecture and I want to try to be in places that foster that?
Well, I wanted to look at buildings. I wanted to really look at buildings. There weren't enough buildings in Grand Rapids to look at.
Right. Yeah.
So
I'm coming from New Haven. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So the idea was to, do that. And I think early in your training, you have to really begin to search for your own voice. You're really out trying to understand, what it is you do. And so...
and it's kind of a lot of sampling, right?
Yeah. Well, you're just trying to find it, and you're saying, this is cool, let's see how that works. And so, that was...
Well, what was that for you? What were the big sort of moments that helped establish who you are? Yeah.
What was true for me back then was that I wasn't interested in a more fashionable approach, a more temporal approach. So these people that would come up with manifestos and begin to talk about, well, this is the way to practice architecture, I really wasn't really interested.
Yeah. Who were some of those that were kind of doing that at the time?
Well, the whole trend towards postmodernism and more formalism, and that didn't feel native to me.
Right. Yeah.
And so I was really more interested in developing a quieter, maybe more serene voice than that. And,
Yeah.
we'll see. I mean, you go, okay, how do you do a quiet, serene football stadium?
Right. Yeah.
And that's not the point. But in a way, it is quiet enough so that it creates a frame
Right.
for all of the
It becomes a
crazy
platform to life, and for
Exactly.
where you're not
all of the intensity of that game
the architect's not screaming at
is your
Yeah.
experience.
Right. Yeah.
Because you're not being competed with.
Yeah. And so when did you start your own firm? Well, I think actually was it 94? I guess, but
94.
I meant more of like
Good
sort
to make you.
sort of the
It's good we came up with the same number.
there we go. Yeah. But sort of like the conditions around that, right? So you said you worked around for different firms, you were traveling.
Yeah.
Did you hit a point where you were like, okay, I've got it. I got it figured out. Let's start this firm.
No.
Put the shingle. Come, let me design your building.
No.
Yeah.
No, I was working in a large firm in Minneapolis, and my son, he was very young, a year old, and he had a heart condition.
Oh.
And so it was pretty clear to me that if I was going to spend time away from that kiddo, that it had to be putting something meaningful out in the world.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
That was it.
And he's fine. He's fine now.
Yeah.
He's
great.
He's about 4 or 5 by now. Is they
2.5.
2.5? Good. Yeah. Strong, strapping Minnesotan. So then, what did that look like? The first sort of year of practice,
Well, I started an office with Vince James
Yeah.
from BJAA.
Okay.
And so we were both at the sperm. And while I was on this leave of absence, I had done a project, and he had a lead on a project that he wanted to pursue. And so we went after that project with another firm and landed it. And a few years later, decided to go our separate directions. And by that time, we had done a few buildings and, just kept going individually. And, I like to think of it as one good practice becoming 2 good practices.
That's a good way to say it. I just had that happen last year to me. Yeah. So it's very difficult, right, to find that perfect partner.
Well, it is.
And
It is.
that you're not overlapping lanes, but you have the same priorities and how you. Yeah.
How you navigate it is it's not exactly simple,
Right.
but
Yeah.
you figure it out.
Yeah. And so, like, getting back to that idea of finding your place within architecture and creating something meaningful. What was the sort of first project within the practice that really checked those boxes for you, where you said like, this is what I think architecture is, and the client didn't screw it up, like, do you have that?
Well, I like to think that early in my career, I started working with what I called the vision guy. And I had a call from a person that Bob Cervenka, his name was, and he owned a plastics company. And he wanted to do a new facility in New Richmond, Wisconsin. And what was cool about it, it's a factory. And what was interesting is factories hadn't had architectural attention for many, many years. Since the Bauhaus.
Yeah.
And so it had this architectural root, really, but nothing had evolved from me. So I started working with him. And what was interesting about it is it was kind of, the first project was, I did all the documents because they wanted to do it design build. And I said, no, I want to detail the whole thing. And we did. And then, just doing CA, was just, constantly moving things back on track.
Yeah.
And it was great. And I had such great support from Bob throughout that. It was amazing because he wanted to reinvent his business. So when I say he was vision guy, his vision wasn't hire Julie.
Right.
His vision was he wanted his team to work together from the front office to the back office.
Yeah.
And then we went to photograph the building, and there's this giant bridge crane. And I wanted to move it down or move it to a certain point that it would look good in the shot.
For the shot. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
And so I had to have somebody show me how to do that.
Oh.
As we were packing up to go, I said, well, thanks for the bridge crane lesson. And he said, well, thank you for building this facility. It's a joy to work in. Because there was daylight on the production floor.
Yeah.
And that was just cool. Yeah. I mean, that was just cool to have somebody that works there to say you changed the way they think about their work.
Right, my daily things, yeah. And so, yeah, how did you evolve sort of that factory typology in that Bauhaus area? Or was it just more paying more attention to...
Yeah, paying more attention. And like I say, it was this... So the typology before was a big box with a little box in front. And then what?
You get a nice brick box in the front, you get your metal one. You don't see the metal box, you only see the brick.
And the way that he was trying to connect the front office tab with the back was a picture window, literally like a 6x4 picture window. And so I thought, well, okay, so we'll just do one roof and full glass wall.
Oh, nice, yeah.
Because you have to control dust and you have to control noise and all this other stuff. So we just changed the diagram.
Yeah.
And, designed a cool kingpin truss and
nice.
Had fun.
And do you find, obviously we're all searching for that visionary client or what you called, right? What's your advice on fishing for those, attracting those? That's
what?
The secret. Please tell me.
Yeah, I will. So once you start working with these guys, they find you. So this was fundamentally a phone call. Who basically Bob called me, and later on when we did the Saints Stadium, I had been working with a developer from Belgium, and he said, I hear the Saints want a new stadium. And so we did it as part of this master plan, and we got to know these guys, and they were so cool and interesting and fun. And clearly their idea of a ballpark was not an orbital ballpark.
Right, yeah.
And so I stalked them for 7 years going to games, and at the end of that, they wanted me to design it. And I said, well, I've never done a ballpark. And they said, no, that's okay. We don't want a ball.
Nice.
We want... So you probably... No, and then after that project, Lee from St. Louis kind of was looking around, and he saw that we could work with somebody else. We worked with Ryan Companies on the St. Paul piece, and we worked with HRK then on the St. Louis piece. So you need to have somebody that can deliver, and really knows the ins and outs of how these places work. So
and then be able to, in two ways, right? Communicate your value, communicate your idea to people who then are coming to you and saying, I don't care if you've never done a stadium, I want you, Julie, please.
Yes.
Right? But then also, have that clarity in the team organization and as they want to equitably create something, right?
Yeah.
So easy.
Collaborative.
It's just all easy stuff, right? Yeah.
Well, collaboration is I mean, it's at the basis of our work. And that's why so often in the lecture I want to credit our collaborators, because they're so essential to delivering the work. And, you know, you can't do it without them.
Right. Yeah.
And now I just so impressed that our guys could put together the 3 different models and create a video.
Oh, right.
That's not so simple.
Yeah.
It turns out.
Yeah.
But it can be done.
Yeah. There's a nice animation of the house at the end, and it was 2 landscape architects and a house, and
No, it was a landscape architect, an interior design, and art selector.
Yeah.
Our art consultant, I guess, she did both.
And it's nice that you, from a principal position, can recognize that, right? That a lot of people was like, just make me the animation, and just do it. Push the button, it'll go.
But you don't want to just see one thing. So we, up till that point, we had been showing, the furniture model, and here's the architecture model, and here's the landscape model.
Right. Yeah. That's all one thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I suppose, large firms have known how to do that for years and years.
Yeah, but
they're just fun.
Nice. Well, I just, thank you for coming. It's been a joy to have you here and be able to talk with you and see your projects, and looking forward to see what you continue to do. So, thank you.
Let's see if they all get built.
Yeah, well, 1 or 2.
They would.
Yeah.
They actually, 2 of them are built already.
Nice.
So,
there you go.
There you go.
Perfect. Great, thanks.
You can visit architecting.com, that's architect-ing.com, to see images from this week's guest.
And please rate and review the show wherever you listen to podcasts.
Have a great week and keep connecting.
This podcast is powered by The Plug.